Studies, where she's mainly focused on the issues related to the South Asian region, terrorism, human rights protection, Indo-Pak relations, and Jammu and Kashmir conflict. There's Yoana.
Thank you very much.
Do you mind if I use this in these cards? Yes, thank you.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me to this august gathering. It is a true pleasure for me to speak at the 30th Annual Conference on Sindh organized by the World Sindhi Congress. On behalf of the European Foundation for South Asian Studies, I would like to express our commitment to preventing and combating any manifestation of violence, injustice, discrimination, or abuse. EFSA strongly supports the struggle of those who feel oppressed or persecuted, and we remain dedicated to promoting the protection of fundamental human rights and fair and equal treatment. As per my expertise, my speech will focus on the financial implications and legal issues regarding the building of the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, with a particular emphasis on the region of Gilgit-Baltistan, part of the disputed territory of the state of Jammu and Kashmir through which the corridor passes, in order to explain in socio-economic terms how the CPAC will influence the lives of the common people and the geopolitical stability of the South Asian region. In regard to the critical issues and human rights violations which take place in Sindh, I will leave the floor to the experts on this panel who will meticulously examine the subject and provide their invaluable opinion. Now, after more than 3 years since the CPAC has officially commenced, it is high time for an assessment on how Pakistan and China have managed so far to advance this colossal 15-year project valued currently at $62 billion. Electric power projects constitute the largest share of the CPAC portfolio in terms of cost, since the country experiences its greatest deficiencies in this sector. Around $30 billion worth of energy infrastructure is planned to be constructed by private consortia, and up to 15,000 megawatts of energy generating capacity will be brought in order to help alleviate Pakistan's chronic energy shortages, which regularly amount to over 4,500 megawatts. Since the responsibility for the majority of energy projects falls on Chinese companies that have taken over the engineering, procurement, and construction of them, the necessary power equipment will be imported from China, for which Pakistan will have to pay duly. According to the Pakistan Bureau of Statistics, in the first 5 months of this fiscal year, the import of power generation machinery stood at $1.4 billion US. Therefore, Pakistan's desperate pursuit of electricity exhibits the collective irrationality and precipitance of its Pakistani contractors, since its electric power shortfall might diminish in the upcoming years, yet it will be much more expensive compared to regional competitors, and it will burden the country with unbearable expenditures. CPAC security surcharges added to the electricity bills of Pakistani consumers will make the new electric power even more costly. Furthermore, there are major disparities considering the financing of those energy projects. First, many of them are funded by loans from China and are not actual investments, which will obstruct Pakistan's ability to pay back. Additionally, the interest rates charged by the China Development Bank and the China Exim Bank reveal that with an estimated debt-equity ratio of 80 to 20%, and investments guaranteeing a 17 to 20% rate of return on their equity, China could recover its investments in less than 3 years, while ripping off Pakistan for at least the upcoming quarter of a century. Not only that, such hugely expensive electricity could paralyze Pakistan's already fragile economy. The current scenario draws quite striking parallels with China's involvement in Sri Lanka. In December 2017, Sri Lanka had to formally hand over its southern seaport of Hambantota to China on a 99-year lease, after being unable to repay its debt. Hence, the debt trap Sri Lanka has found itself should provide some useful lessons for Pakistan. First, CPAC might come at the expense of national sovereignty and independence if Islamabad does not carefully review the financial agreements it abides to. And second, the imposition of China's terms and conditions could be hardly interpreted as a win-win situation. The Gwadar port deal vividly illustrates those claims, since the profits will be 91% in favor of China in the following 40 years. Given the above picture, it is possible to forecast the astronomical burden on Pakistan's payment capacity in the coming years. The impact this debt finance project will have on Pakistan has been discussed by various international and supranational bodies. In its recently concluded review of the project, the International Monetary Fund has also warned Pakistan of the looming CPAC bill that Islamabad will have to defray in the end. The IMF has expressed its concerns about the adverse implications of repayments of loans and profit repatriations to China, which could place the Pakistani economy in a lot of trouble than actually encouraging its development. In addition to that, the fact that the repayment capacity of Pakistan remains weak due to lack of any vast increases in terms of exports and due to the volatility of the Pakistani rupee against the US dollar appears as an issue of great concern. For its 70 years history, Pakistan has heavily relied on foreign aid from international monetary agencies. However, this new marriage with China is questionable as the debts it causes may crash Pakistan's financial system, consequently reducing it to a vassal state. Additionally, all the local markets have been flooded by low-cost Chinese goods, resulting in the closure of Pakistani business enterprises. Currently, the population of Pakistan is more than 200 million, with people in their 20s and 30s as a majority, which means a large working-age population. Therefore, for many of those young people, the CPAC might have in theory, but not in reality, appeared as a favorable possibility of finding a job. Both Pakistani and Chinese officials and media news outlets constantly give employment figures for different projects. Yet, hardly any of those numbers are substantiated by formal governmental documents. Even ostensibly detailed reports on the CPAC actually provide no specific data on actual job figures, which is highly alarming considering the ongoing public resentment and suspicion regarding who is the de facto benefactor of the CPAC. Yet the informational eclipse does not end here. There is scarcity of information on the types of jobs that will be created, what skills will be required, what their duration will be, which projects will be included, and what will be the amount of the salaries. Currently, the rates of unemployment in Pakistan stand at 5.9%, which accounts for more than 3.5 million of the population. Therefore, even if those job prospects are taken at face value, they are still nowhere near to satisfy the overall demand. Considering the fear expressed by many Chinese citizens in regard to security, a big proportion of those jobs, in fact, will be in the security domain in order to protect Chinese investments and citizens. Therefore, it is imperative for the people of Pakistan to realize that the current Chinese development model will do little for the local economy, as China prefers to use its own companies and employees rather than hire locally. Apart from the Chinese financial invasion, which constitutes securing jobs for its workers at the expense of locals and flooding the market with cheap goods, which suffocate the domestic business, the adverse dimensions of the cultural exchange between the two countries should be also considered. Currently, the abundance of Chinese language courses across Pakistan suggests that with the advent of the CPAC, there will be sufficiently large numbers of Chinese citizens present in Pakistan, which in the long run might trigger cultural frictions. Pakistan submitting to the socio-cultural impact of the introduction of the Chinese language at the expense of its local languages could appear as evidence how the country slowly is becoming a satellite state of China. Although the multi-billion developmental game-changer plan was ostensibly established for the purposes of fostering trade and people-to-people contact, in reality the foundation of the project is settled in very murky waters. Therefore, it is essential to discuss the legal background of the CPAC in order to expose how the building of the corridor is de facto in contravention with international law, and Pakistan is virtually selling out territory to China which does not belong to it, under the rubric of infrastructural development. CPAC is passing through the region of Gilgit-Baltistan, part of the disputed territory of Jammu and Kashmir, which does not fall within the jurisdiction of the Constitution of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. Despite that, the people of Gilgit-Baltistan are heavily affected by the creation of this economic corridor, and they have strongly opposed it. They've been entirely excluded from any say in this project, indicating that China does not take the opinion of the indigenous people into account. Reports suggest that China is digging more than 22 tunnels in Gilgit-Baltistan for deployment of missiles, while other areas in Gilgit-Baltistan are exploited for natural mineral deposits, especially gold, copper, coal, iron, and silver resources. In addition to that, owing to the building of the corridor, the region is already facing serious environmental issues, including climate change due to the air and water pollution, inadequate waste disposal, natural resources depletion, deforestation, loss of biodiversity, and glacier melting. While administratively controlled by Pakistan since the First Kashmir War, Gilgit-Baltistan has never been formally integrated into the Pakistani state and does not participate in Pakistan's constitutional political affairs. In 2009, the Gilgit-Baltistan Empowerment and Self-Governance Order was passed by the Pakistani cabinet and later signed by the then President of Pakistan, Asif Ali Zardari. The order granted self-rule to the people of Gilgit-Baltistan by creating, among other things, an elected Gilgit-Baltistan Legislative Assembly and Gilgit-Baltistan Council. Gilgit-Baltistan thus gained a de facto province-like status without constitutionally becoming part of Pakistan. Officially, Pakistan claims that it cannot integrate Gilgit-Baltistan into Pakistan, as that would prejudice its international obligations with regard to the Jammu and Kashmir conflict. Whether Pakistan likes it or not, Gilgit-Baltistan continues to be an integral part of the state of Jammu and Kashmir, which Pakistan does not have a legal right over. It has, however, become vital for China that Gilgit-Baltistan has a political status within Pakistan. Beijing finds it internationally indefensible to invest billions of dollars on a road that passes through a disputed territory claimed by both India and Pakistan. In case Pakistan imposes its sovereign right over Gilgit-Baltistan, India could claim of having a political and moral right to fully integrate Jammu and Kashmir into India and scrap Article 370 of its constitution, which gives Jammu and Kashmir a special status. Any kind of solution to the long-standing issue of Jammu and Kashmir will only be jeopardized by such events. On paper, it might be explicitly and profoundly explained how the CPAC is being constructed in order to fulfill the needs and wishes of the Pakistani population, but yet the reality greatly differs from what is being said or written. The Chinese master plan conceives a picture where the majority of Pakistani socioeconomic sectors are deeply penetrated by Chinese companies and Chinese culture. Thus, Islamabad puts itself at risk of facing its finances and social structure experiencing a colossal wreck. The combination of high upfront tariffs, interest rates, and surcharges will complicate Pakistan's efforts to repay its loans, forcing the state to increase its domestic and export prices, making it difficult to compete with neighboring and other countries which maintain lower prices. The borrower is always servant to the lender. The 15-year mega project illuminates how Pakistan voluntarily is becoming progressively subjugated by China and its terms and conditions. Following Beijing's history of trade relations with African countries, it is evident that China will be very careful about its investments and thereafter quite rigid in receiving its money back. Islamabad, or rather Rawalpindi, might have signed the CPAC agreement believing it would be advantageous to its country, but it actually subscribed to an unfair deal for which common Pakistanis will eventually suffer. Although China advertises Pakistan as its brother and all-weather friend, the truth is that their friendship has always had an embedded enduring imbalance. Pakistan is in China's debt, and the debt will only deepen. China has exclusively taken advantage of the fact that Pakistan has managed to isolate itself from the world due to wide allegations of sponsoring terrorism, and Beijing might currently act as the godfather, assuring Islamabad that it will serve its interests, yet is fully aware that this patronizing attitude will only turn Pakistan into a colony which will always require China for its day-to-day survival. As long as Pakistan operates in the shadow of another East India company and does not realize the importance of protecting its national interests, which in essence are the people of Pakistan, any attempts for national development will transform into national calamity. Furthermore, security concerns, such as Chinese installations in Pakistan being attacked, or Chinese workers in Pakistan kidnapped or killed in retaliation for Chinese treatment to Uyghur Muslims, by any of the few dozen Islamic extremist and terrorist groups operating in Pakistan, additionally could impose a strain on the relationship of the two countries. The flaws in the Sino-Pak relation will surface once the Chinese funding fails to lead to the anticipated returns for Pakistan, and violent extremism and instability toward Beijing's initial projections. Such a scenario will not only be disastrous to Pakistan and China, but to the whole of South Asia. Thank you.